All right. Hello and welcome, Just a Family. This is giving you something to talk about, or just a live TV, as I like to call it. I'm your host, Melissa Krechler. I'm an identity coach, spiritual teacher, business mentor, and creator and founder of not only Just a Live TV, but also the Women Supporting Women Can Network. Today, we're going to be talking to you about living a do as I say, not as I do life, and how that negatively impacts our everyday lives. And it really, really does. So if you were ever a child who heard your parents say, do as I do, not as I say, how is that shaping your life today? So we're going to be getting into that. Our sponsor for today is none other than a Phoenix Identity, who is offering you the opportunity to figure out how to walk your own talk. And that goes hand in hand with what we're sharing today, is being able to walk your own talk, right? It's easy for us to talk the talk, but when it comes to walking the actual walk, it's a little bit different. So go and check them out. They're offering you a clarity session. Regular price is $149. Go use the coupon code Clarity1 and get it for $97. You can find that link in the description. If you would like to connect with either myself or my co-host today, you can find both of our links in the description of this video, as well as if you would like to be a guest speaker, or if you'd like a topic featured on the show, please reach out to us at justalivetv.com. You can follow us across our many social media platforms. And I'm now going to hand it over to our guest for today, Pascale Lane.
Thank you very much, Melissa. So my name is Pascale. I'm a relationship and confidence coach based in London. And I'm just a really, really big believer and passionate believer that we are, in our adult life, just such a product of our foundations, which is our early years experience and our family life. And how we kind of witnessed family life growing up, and what we bring into our own family. And as we're going to get onto later, I'm sure, Melissa, what we then end up teaching our own children about family life and relationships and, kind of confidence, self-image and everything that goes with it. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Sounds great. So I'm going to jump right in, and I'm going to share something that I've shared on quite a few episodes, and I'm going to share it again because I always do, is that how many times do we say to our children, we don't talk to them about the finances, we don't talk to them about relationships, we talk about what we find important that they need to learn, right? But if we're having a hard day, if we're struggling financially, if we're struggling in any aspect of our lives, we don't tend to talk to our children about that. And instead, we tell them what to do. We teach them what to do and say, do as you're told, do it because I'm telling you to. That's the rules, follow through. I'm a mother of four, right? Obviously, we do, I drink Pepsi 24/7. I'm a smoker. So of course I have the do as I say, not as I do. Now, if they choose to do it when they're adults, totally different. I can't control that. I'm obviously not being a good role model in those two areas, but still it is, right? I'm teaching them that, it's okay to do what I do for me, but it's not okay for you to do it. And I think as kids, as we grow up, that sticks, right? That mentality sticks. Do as I say, not as I do. I can teach you, but I can't teach myself. Even as an identity coach, I always have said, it's easier to help others than it is to help me. And the reason is because we're emotionally invested in the outcome. That's the difference, is we're emotionally invested in the outcome of our own situation. So it's easier to tell people what to do or help people figure out what they're supposed to do, but maybe we don't take our own advice. And so that's the first part I wanted to talk about, is how that is such a huge double standard. It's okay for me, but it's not okay for you.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I talk about that a lot as well. Coming at it from I'm a relationship and confidence coach. So I come at it from a relationship and confidence angle. And I believe that your confidence kind of sets the benchmark for everything that you do in life. But when we are, like the way that we talk to our husbands, our partners, our wives, the way that we talk to our children, the way that we talk to our friends, our colleagues, the lady in the supermarket, the man at the garage, like whatever, like the way that we do all of that is what we are modeling to our children about how to respect other people, how to communicate effectively, how to have difficult conversations, how to express love and admiration and all of those things. And we have so many, like we have so many expectations, and I say we, like the royal we, have so many expectations of kids around how they should behave at school, how they should behave in society, what they should be doing, that they should be compassionate, that they should be self-motivated, that they should speak up when they, all of these things that we expect them to do, or we teach them to do. But are we doing all of those things ourselves? Are we modeling these excellent communication skills with our partner? Are we exercising good compassion, empathy, motivation? Do we talk to ourselves? I mean, you'll relate to this as a mother, I'm sure. Are our children learning good body image, and that we love our lumps and bumps? Or do they see the look that we give ourselves when we look in the mirror and something doesn't fit right? All of these kind of things. Yeah. So exactly everything that you were saying, but also all of the other stuff, because like life is one huge lesson for all of us. So how I talk to my husband in a nice way, but how I also talk to him when we're not in a good place, right? When we're disagreeing with something, or if I'm tired and I'm irritable or what have you, that's what they're learning. So we have to be constantly checking ourselves to make sure that we are giving them as best. Like, we are not Mary Poppins. I don't believe that this isn't about perfection. This isn't about like getting everything spot on all of the time, but also, I suppose, being accountable for that at the same time when we're not doing it.
Yeah, being human beings. One of our viewers said, I think I'm a bit unique because I grew up with so much chaos in my early life that I tend to, some consider, over communicate with my children what was going on in our family. The one thing that I don't do is lie to my kids or mislead them in any way. And that's great. I'll give you an example of my own from today. So today I woke up and I was feeling really down. And I did a video about it, and I will be sharing that soon. But I did a video about it, and it was, I got up and I was feeling a certain way. And I know that the way that I was feeling was internal. I could externalize it. I could get mad at everybody else. I could take it out on everybody else to make it everybody else's problem. But I'm not like that. I have a different mentality. One of the things I teach, and I'm assuming you do as well, Pascale, is it's not their fault that I'm feeling this way, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. I got up. I was making my youngest daughter, who's 8, I was making her a bagel. And she says, Mom, aren't you having a bagel too? And I said, no. And she goes, why are you sick? And I said, no, I'm unhappy this morning. I'm feeling sad this morning. And she goes, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'll be fine. I said, I just have to work through it and process what it means for me, and then I'll be okay, right? And I have had parents tell me they don't cry in front of their children. I have parents, like my own family, you never ask somebody their age. You never ask about finances. You never discuss finances. And I'm like, how are they supposed to learn though? I'm very, very open and honest with my children, with my husband. If I take accountability for myself, just like you were saying. If I'm having a bad day and I'm trigger happy, because I get trigger happy, I will walk up to my family or whoever walks up to me, and I'll say, listen, I am not in a good mood to converse with you right now. I don't want to say or do anything that's going to hurt you. But I am getting to that point where that's what's going to happen if I don't put myself on a time. I said, so you need to respect that it's time for me to calm down, and then I'll talk with you, right? I'll let you know when I'm available, and they'll leave me alone. They'll give me that space, right? But it's that communication, right? Now, I could be the do as I say, not as I do. And if my daughter, who's 12, going on 13, if she walks up to me and she gives me attitude, I could instantly react and tell her, how dare you give me attitude, respect your elders, calm your shit down, or whatever, pardon my language. But instead I say, and she can tell that I get frustrated. Like I said, I'm kind of trigger happy. I'm good at control. So she walks in the house one day and I'm on my way out to have a cigarette. I can see her, she's pissy. Like I could see her getting off the bus. She was in a bad mood. I was on my way for a cigarette. So I went and had my cigarette, came back in. She goes, I'm not happy with you. And I said, oh, what did I do? She goes, you could have said hi. I said, one, you're in a bad mood. I was already on my way out the door for a cigarette because I don't smoke in my house. I said, I came in and I said hi as soon as I came in the house. I said, first of all, I understand that you're in a bad mood. I understand that. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're in a bad mood, you're in a bad mood. And I am here and available for you to talk. I said, but I'm not the creator of your bad mood. So I don't deserve you putting that bad mood onto me. I said, when you calm yourself down and you'd like to speak with me, I am here and I'm available. But you need to put yourself on a timeout until that time. You need to figure out whatever it is. And I've taught them, they have to figure out whatever it is that calms their emotions down, whatever that looks like. And then we can talk. So it is very much, if I expect them to respect me and my needs, I need to respect their needs. And that's a huge thing in the do as I say. And that goes for any type of relationship, even the one with yourself.
Gosh, especially the one with yourself. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But it is about being like, you're absolutely right. Because we can't underestimate that, because we are in this line of work, that we have a huge advantage about having that kind of like self-awareness and that ability to kind of catch ourselves. But it is about being able to go, wow, hang on a minute, there's something going on here for you and there's something going on here for me, and being able to have that open dialogue and actually being able to keep calm about it, or whatever, like whatever the mood is going on. But I do think there's also a line, like the lady was I presume it was a lady, I don't know whether I should have made that, I think you said it was a lady, that wrote about kind of like oversharing. There's a line, isn't there, where we know what is like, it's really good to be open, like I think, and our generation is really good at this as well, being kind of like much more in touch with our emotions, being able to talk about emotions much more and express them. But it has to be, we also have to take into account the age of the child that we are speaking to, and keeping it at a level where, because what we don't want is our children to be responsible for our emotions. We can be responsible, like, to help them with their emotions, because that's our job as parents and as adults. But I suppose if it tips the other way, in the reverse role, where they then become the ones that have to look after us, because we haven't got that balance. And it is a difficult balance, because children mature at very different ages. And so you're 12, you've got 4 children, right? They're all going to be at the age of 10, let's keep it simple, they're all going to be of completely different levels of maturity and awareness. So you have to kind of pitch it right. Give them autonomy. Let them know what's going on in the world. Let them know what's going on within the wider family if there's something going on, but at a level that is appropriate.
Age appropriate. Yeah. Like my oldest, so my children are, this year, they're 8, 13, 18, and 20. So I have quite the range. But the things that I'll discuss with the 20-year-old, right, may not be the exact same things I'll discuss with the 12-year-old or the 13-year-old and the 8-year-old, right? It's not just the discussion, it's the way that you say it. I can have the same discussion with all 4 of my children, but depending on their own unique identity and their stage of maturity, their stage of awareness, I have to word it a certain way. Now, that comes with another level of awareness. That is another level of awareness. But for everyday people, right? Even my husband, everyday people, it's knowing that, number one, our emotional well-being is nobody else's responsibility but our own. And that is a misconception people do not hold on to. My daughter's emotional health and well-being is not my responsibility. I do not control what triggers her emotional responses. Just like if somebody says something to me, if the intention is there, right? If somebody is intentionally going to hurt me, I have to know whether they're doing it intentionally before I react, right? Before I respond. I need to know whether the intention is that outcome. A lot of the time, our disagreements, our do as I say, not as I do, our emotional health and well-being, we tie it into, you did this and it made me feel this way. No, I feel this way in response to you doing that. That's on me. It's not on you that I feel this way. And that is a huge communication barrier between adults, between children. We expect, and I was segueing out of there, so I apologize, but we expect our children to do as we say, not as we do, right? But we're the ones teaching them. Yeah. And we forget that our children are not us. They don't have the same experiences. They don't have the same triggers. They don't have the same emotional reaction as we do to a different situation because they're a different generation. They're unique individuals, right? So a lot of the time we tell them, we'll do it this way or do it that way. They're going to do it their way. Regardless of what we say or do, they're going to do it their way. We have to be there to support and acknowledge that, hey, I'm here for you, but you need to learn your consequences. You need to learn that your action has a cause and effect. We have another comment. Agreed. I keep the information at a level the children understand depending on their age of development. When I say overshare, my grandmother questioned why I explain to my kids what is going on, moving, changing schools. I have noticed that older generations are of the mind that children are just there and are not to have things explained to them. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
My grandparents and my parents' generation was absolutely about that, and it's not. If you're stressed out, relationships even, no matter the type of relationship, if you're in a relationship with anybody, whether it be family or friends or even a partner, if you're stressed out, those people love you. They're going to have an empath connection to your emotions, right? They're going to feel whether or not you were emotional, whether you're upset, whether you're hiding something. Children and partners will, and even friends, right? You look at social media. If I posted on social media today going, I'm struggling with this, how many people are going to go, is it me? Did I do something? What did I do wrong? Is this about me? Our children do that. Our partners do that. It's a lack of communication, right? And that's, again, the do as I say, not as I do. It's okay for me to bottle it all up, but not them.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I'd be interested to know what your commenter is meaning about oversharing, because in that example, that didn't feel like oversharing. I mean, my 9-year-old is very empathic, and we are very, very in tune with each other. And I talk to her about, I mean, again, age appropriately, obviously. I mean, I think I talk to her about pretty much everything, to be honest with you, at a level that she can understand and not overburdening her. But because she gets it, like she's so in tune with me. So when she was 10 months old, I really suddenly lost my dad. And the three of us had an incredibly close bond. He lived very close to us. And so, at that at that point of grief, that point of like unbelievable grief, it was very difficult to do that whole, like, am I supposed to cry in front of her? Like, if I break down, like, suddenly am I supposed to like walk out of the room with like a, and I don't know whether it was because of that or not. I kind of think that our bond is a little bit special because she was such a huge part of my grieving process. That's such a huge part of that time of my life. But we're just incredibly in tune, and she can read me like all of our children can read us like a book, but some more so than others. And Amelie can really, really read me, so she knows when something's going on. I have. It would be wrong of me to just dismiss her as, well, she's only 9. She doesn't need to know. Like, she does need to know, because she already knows. So if I don't tell her what's going on, she's just going to fill in the gaps by herself and come up with something like either ridiculous or just something like completely wrong. So, but also it's about teaching. It's the same example of do as I do, not as I say, whichever way around that is. Because when I can remember having a conversation with her years ago about finding something in a playground. She'd found this thing. It was a toy. She really wanted it. She must have been about 4 at the time, maybe even younger. And she really, really wanted to take it home. And I said, look, darling, if you had left this in the park and then you came back an hour later to find it and it had gone, like, how would that make you feel? And she remembers that. She remembers that conversation all the way up to now. And that's just the most basic way of kind of getting a child to understand empathy. Like, how would you feel if that situation happened to you? And she applies that to absolutely everything. So we can have these conversations. We can do these conversations. If I was moving place, moving schools, moving whatever, she would absolutely have to be a part of that conversation. I wouldn't be able to just spring that on her and just say, oh, it's for your own good, like the reasons don't matter. And that blows my mind.
But that is part of the older generation, right? The older generation is very much, I'm in control. And we were talking about that in the pre-screening, was the domineering, right? There are a lot of people in relationships now, or even positions of power, who will say, this is my way or the highway. It has to be this way or nothing. Or this is what I expect. This is what I'm going to get. That's very toxic thinking, right? It is a very toxic behavior. And, putting those expectations on your children, on your friends, on your family, on your partner, employees, employers, those kind of expectations are absolutely toxic, right? There needs to be better communication and better awareness of not everybody's going to do things the same way. Again, the video I did this morning was about my own feelings. And if I sit there and I say, if I don't say something, if I need something from somebody, right? If I need something from somebody, and I know that it's something that I need that's going to help my emotional health and well-being, if I don't say anything, I can't get mad at them for not providing that to me.
No, absolutely.
Because 1, they're not a mind reader. 2, I'm putting my expectation on somebody else who has no effing clue what I need or want. And there's that level, right? And that can be, again, another way. If you expect something from somebody else. So my youngest right now is slightly in the hitting age. And she went and started hitting her brother the other day. And I said, number 1, if you're going to hit, you better expect to be hit back. It goes both ways. You cannot hit somebody and not expect them to do it back to you. Not saying that violence is wrong, but at the same time, she needs to understand that that is a possibility. And she can't just get away with it because she's a girl. And then on the other hand, she's doing that and I hear her brother laughing. And I walked up to him and I said, you understand that you encouraging her to behave this way is getting her in trouble. And he's like, oh crap. And he stopped, right? Because he didn't realize that it's okay for him to do it, right? It's okay for him to go to her, but he's not the one getting in trouble, right? Do as I say, not as I do. It's okay for me to say to do it, but I'm not the one getting in trouble.
Yeah. And it's exactly the same with adult I've just been talking about this in a workshop, talking about adult relationships and communication. And you know, we can have feelings, we can have emotions, we can have disagreements, but if we're not sharing our emotions, if we're just expecting our partner or our children or whoever else to just know how we're thinking or feeling, you can't possibly resolve it, right? So if we're having a conversation, my husband and I are disagreeing about something, we really, really need to get to the root of why I'm feeling. It's not just good enough me just saying, well, I think this, and so that's just like, that's the end of the conversation. It's like, I think this because this is why I feel it. This is why it's so important to me. These are emotions that are coming up in me, and maybe those emotions aren't justified, but those emotions are real to me. You know, this is just an imaginary conversation, but this is how it goes. And exactly the same for our children. So we are not going to be able to resolve our misunderstanding until we're absolutely clear about the whys. I'm big on the whys at the moment. I think my why must be the word for the month at the moment. Why do you feel like that? Why are you responding like that? Why are those feelings coming up? Like, why is it? Because when I understand the whys of something, then we get to do things differently. We get to change. When you were explaining to your son that actually you laughing like that is actually encouraging her behavior, and that is getting her into trouble, you've given him a whole new perspective now, which is like, oh right, okay, I thought she was just being an idiot and like hitting me and what have you, and I was just laughing at her because she was getting angry and it was funny. But actually now I realize the consequences of my behavior and the impact that's having, I now get to make a different choice, right? And so that's what we all get to do, all along the ways, which comes back to like whether or not you're oversharing, if you're explaining stuff to your kids, or whatever the behavior or the action is. When we understand what's underneath that, then we get to understand it differently. That's really important to me.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like right now, I have the same show, different episode every day, Monday to Friday, same time, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. We do the show. And I don't know if you can hear it, but my youngest daughter is across the hall. She's homesick today. She doesn't knock on the door once. Unless it's an emergency, she stays out there. Now, my oldest daughter is at school today. And for the last 2 weeks, it's been message every day. She's been messaging me between 2 and 3 every day. And I could absolutely fly off the handle because I've told her not to do it, right? I've told her not to do it. And so now when she comes home at 3, because she comes home literally at 3:15, so I don't know why she can't wait 15 minutes. But when she comes home today, I'll sit her down and teach her that, you know, if you're at school, I'm not messaging you while you're at school, right? If you're having a phone conversation with your friend, even at home, I'm not constantly interrupting. It is a mutual respect, right? And as children, again, our children want to be respected. They want to be respected, accepted. Our partners want to be respected and accepted. Never mind any of that. We want to be respected and accepted. And we need to mirror that. We need to show them that. You can't expect anybody else to respect and accept you if you aren't going to accept and respect other people. We did one on the feminist movement, or feminism. We did an episode, and it's become all about domination. right? And my question to everybody watching and everybody catching this replay is, you expect to be treated a certain way, right? Let's say you expect to be treated with respect, right? And let's say you have a person who disrespects you constantly, right? And then all of a sudden, you become the powerful one, right? Because you're giving them your power by allowing them to disrespect you. And that's not a victim shaming or a blame or guilt or anything, but we do give away our power and enable people to disrespect us. Now, let's say the roles have reversed and flipped. Now you're in a position of power, right? You know what it feels like to be belittled, disrespected, unloved, all of this. And then, are you better or are you worse than the person who is doing it to you if you do it back to them? You're worse because you know how it feels, right?
Yeah.
As our generation, 20s to 30s, 20s to 40s, 20s to 50s, even, we were told, do as I say, not as I do. What did we learn from that? We learned to shut up, keep our mouths quiet, and do as we're told, and to become sheeple. And I fight the sheeple. I fight against people becoming sheeple. We are not meant to all be sheep flocking the same way, in the same direction, saying the same thing. We're not all supposed to be going bah while we're walking down the street. That's not what we're meant for. We have voices, we have thoughts, we're all unique individuals. And telling our children, telling our partners, this is how it has to be. There's no compromise. There's no give. There's no compassion. You are not thinking about the other person in your life that deserves your attention. Are you better or are you worse?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting because I think we're at a really privileged age at the moment where we're seeing so much diversity coming into society. And I would like to say largely being accepted. I don't think it's largely accepted, but I mean, we're at the beginning stages of it. So no, we don't want our children to be sheep. We don't want to be sheep. But there's also, we've also got that fine line, haven't we? Where if anybody is kind of too far out of the margins either way, then they're labelled one way or another as well. But yeah, I mean, I think again, it comes back to me to understanding the reasons underneath it and really kind of exploring the whys, because when we understand the whys, it's like conformity is such a dull thing. Like, I hate conformity, and there are so many opportunities to kind of break the norm, but there are also certain situations where you do have to conform. But there, it's about having that conversation, having that dialogue about why we do the things that we do. And again, I'm back to kind of like consequences again. What are the consequences if we do it like this? Like, what are the consequences if we choose not to do this? Like, my daughter didn't want to do her homework the other day. And I'm kind of like, you make your own decisions. Like, you really are mature enough to make that decision. If you don't want to do your homework, that is absolutely fine, but understand that there will very likely be consequences for that, and you will have to take them. Like, you will have to accept that as a natural part of not doing your homework. So, like, that's your choice. I'm not gonna take away your dinner and say you can't eat your dinner until you've done your homework. Like, if you're actively making that choice, then go for it.
Yep.
Is it necessary?
And
is
that's
it necessary?
Responsibility.
Yeah.
Right? That's teaching responsibility, but not just an individuality, right? If you tell a child, okay, well, you don't have to eat your dinner, but you're not eating anything else, there's a choice, right? Now, I will make my children something different, or I will tell them to make themselves something different if I know they absolutely don't like what I'm making. Chili, you can guarantee that both my daughters aren't eating it. They're not going to eat it. But it's working with them, right? I'm just reading your comment. We have all been brainwashed because the education systems have failed to provide the truth of what freedom of speech and thoughts truly are, and it is normal to agree to disagree. Absolutely. Not disagreeing with that. That is a whole nother topic, and we are getting to that topic. It is actually coming up next month. So wait for that episode. The thing I wanted to touch on a couple things that you had mentioned, and that was the labels, right? You talk about either way, if we go too far out of the norm, we're labeled. The funny thing is that we're only labeled if we choose to, we pick our own labels, right? Anybody can come up to me off the street and say, or even on this show, and say whatever they want about me. I get to choose whether it's a label that I accept or I don't accept, right? I get to choose our roles and our labels, our roles, titles, and labels, or what I call them, are I'm a wife. That's not who I am. It's a role that I have, but it's not who I am. I'm a mother. It's again a role that I hold, but it's not who I am. Labels are just that, labels, right? And we get to pick and choose which ones we bring into our sphere, whether we like them or don't like them, right? Your thoughts about your self-worth, your thoughts about who you are, your thoughts about, what your kids should and shouldn't know, what your partner should and shouldn't do, are unique to you, right? So I like to go outside the norm. I'm a very outside the box thinker. I like to do things differently. I like to be unique and creative. But the outside world, all of my viewers, as much as I want to show you love and as much as I want to embrace you and help you grow, not all of you are going to like what I have to say. And I'm okay with that. I am a firm believer in agree to disagree, because not everybody is going to think like me. Not everybody is going to agree with me. But for those who do or don't, if you judge me, that's on you. That's not on me. Right? And I think that, those labels go hand in hand with that, is we are only labeled by the things we choose to agree with. Right?
Yeah, I mean, my brain's kind of doing 10 to the dozen there, because I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I think also that comes, like, I can't disconnect that from self-esteem. And if you to say, for one to say, your labels, your opinions of me don't matter, is great, but that takes a level of self-confidence for one to not care about what other people think about them and the labels that they put on them. So okay. Yes, I agree. But on the other hand, if you don't have that self-belief and that self-esteem, then those labels that others say about you are going to really affect you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And they do, right? But you get to choose how long, right? Anything that anybody says to you will instantly trigger that response. It will, or reaction, right? Because your emotions are a reaction. They're not actually a logical response. They're a reaction to a belief. So if you have ever been insecure, if you've ever had a lack of confidence, that will absolutely hit that trigger, right? The difference is, and let me ask you this, right? So for those of you who don't have that level of self-esteem, right? If somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, Melissa, you're a bitch," I'm going to be like, right on. Absolutely, I have no problem with that, right? Like I'm totally good with that. You can call me just about every name under the sun, and I'm just like, I don't even care, right? That's unconditional self-love. There are things that I don't like about myself, but I unconditionally love myself, and I am confident in my identity as who I am, right? That is a whole nother love. But if somebody walked up to my daughter, right, and said that to me about my daughter, instant trigger, right? Now, if you sit in a room and you have somebody at the front of the room, and let's say that somebody is your child, right? You unconditionally love that child. There is not a single person who can say anything about that child that's going to change your mind. You will unconditionally love that child. If that child is rude to you, if they're crude, if they don't listen, if they're disrespectful, you are still utterly going to love that child. That is unconditional love, right?
Yeah.
We have the level of unconditional love to put on our children, but not on ourselves.
Yeah.
Which does not logically does not make sense. That is our inability to do as I say and not as I do.
Yeah.
That is the ultimate example of that. You will have, if you're with a partner and everybody in your head is they're cheater, they're lying, they're this, they're that. If you unconditionally love that person, nothing is going to change how you feel about that person other than their own actions and your own responses, right? When we unconditionally love ourselves, we put that onto other people. We unconditionally love other people. I might not agree with other people. Doesn't mean I don't respect and honor them for where they're at. I don't have to agree. I'm confident in who I am. That doesn't make me conceited. It doesn't make me, overly confident, or it's a different mentality, right? When I can sit here and go, you can call me absolutely every name under the sun. Yeah, it's going to chip. I'm not going to say it's not going to chip. Obviously, we are emotional human beings. It's going to chip. But it's not going to change how I feel about myself. Just like you can't change how I feel about my children.
Yeah. But how many people do you think have that level of unconditional self-love?
Not a lot. And that's society's problem. That is not, everybody has the capability of learning how to love themselves that unconditionally. That's literally one of the things I teach, is how to love yourself unconditionally, no matter what. The problem is society has taught us, they've brainwashed us, exactly like one of our viewers said. We have been brainwashed. And it's conformity, right? I'm a non-conformist. I don't care what you say the rules are. I don't have to conform to that. Do I have moral standards? Absolutely. They fit me. Do I have legal standards? Absolutely. I don't want to go to jail. But at the same time, it's not going to be the same as everybody else. And I can stand comfortable in those. It's finding out who you are, finding out what your passions are, what you like, what you dislike, and recalibrating that conditioning, right? We grow up and society tells us you have to fit in this box. We're going to label you. It's like the Divergent series. What is it called? Can't remember what it's called. Anyway, if anybody has watched the Divergent series with Tris, and Four, very interesting love story. But you had a section, you were born into a section. And every year, when you reached a certain age, you would be tested on what section you fit into. And then you would have to go and move into that section. You would have to live those sections' rules and become basically a slave to that section. She was all of them. And she unconditionally loved herself and was confident in who she was. And there were others like her who saw her and said, that's me. That's what I want to be like. That's what I yearn to be. And it created a movement. Society has made us all attack each other and label each other. And again, it is a lot of the do as I say and not as I do. Society as a whole is in that conditioning where you're not good enough unless I say you're good enough. You're not accepted unless I say you're accepted. Cancel culture, positivity movement. We have created so many different aspects of the world or of society where if you don't fit into this box or this bubble, you're not okay, right? It's like the LGBTQ community. I saw a video where a transgender man had said, or transgender woman, my apologies, had said, you told me I couldn't be feminine because I was a male and that I needed to dress like a female and become female in order to act like a female. Now that I am doing that, I'm still not good enough. You told me to do this, right? And it's their society is filled with standards and regulations and rules that are do as I say, not as I do. And we've all just conformed to it. I talk about negativity because negativity is the catalyst to positive growth. You don't know to change your life if you're not unhappy with where it is.
Yeah.
Right? If you're not happy with yourself, you don't know to say, hey, I'm stronger than that. I'm smarter. I'm beautiful. And start to love yourself. That's what the change creates. But positivity movement said, no, you can't do any negativity. That's not okay. Yet now we have people who are emotionally stunted and don't know how to handle negativity because they've never processed it.
Yeah.
Do as I say, not as I do, right? There's so many different aspects of that phrase. So many different aspects. It's frustrating.
No. I mean, it's like you say, like it's so far-reaching. There are so many examples to talk about of how I'm sitting here smiling because I was having this conversation with my daughter about transgender again, like another another conversation where it's just like I know that we need to be talking about this. She'd asked, we've got where I live in London, we have a road crossing that is the transgender flag, so the pale blue, pink and white, and she was asking me what it meant. So I was just like, well, we'll talk about it. And she said, is it the same as the pride one? And I said no. So we were talking about gay pride and homosexuality, and then we're talking about like transgender and what it means and what have you. And it was a wonderful conversation to have with her because I was just like kind of like thinking to myself, like obviously it's incredibly complicated, and I wouldn't for a minute want to think that I'm in any way educated enough on all of the emotional aspect that goes into what it must feel like, and like how unbelievably, like what a hard decision, what a hard life, and what a hard decision like to go through the transition. That's not beyond my depth in terms of, it's just like I haven't experienced that, so I have to be fair and balanced to that. But what a wonderful conversation to be able to have with her on our way to Brownies, to be sharing with her that level of diversity in a way that, you know, we would never have been spoken to when we were growing up, mostly because it wasn't a thing, right? Or if it was a thing, it was dirty in some way. It's something that we just wouldn't have been spoken about. But now that we can kind of talk about it and just say like, and celebrate it, and like, yeah, isn't it great that like, if this is something that you want to do, that you have the free choice to do it. And again, like bloody hell, I'm sounding like such a broken record today, but coming back to the why and coming back to the emotions underneath it, and the explaining, because actually, if we can sum this up, Melissa, probably, maybe not, but we could probably sum this up quite easily, just saying, if we just actually just took the time to just explain to our children, explain to our partners, explain to our loved ones and teachers and what have you, why we want to do this. This is my thinking behind it. This is my feeling behind it. This is the angle I'm coming from, and this is why I feel so strongly about it. God, how different would life be if we just actually all just explained where we were all coming from a little bit more? It's just like, it's so simple. Why don't we do that?
I 100% agree. And that's the difference between preaching and teaching. Right?
Yeah.
I always tell my husband's a preacher, not literally, not in the religious sense, but my husband will preach to our daughters, and he will tell them, instead of explaining a situation, he will tell them, just do it. where I sit there and I'm like, this is why, this is how, this is when. Like, I go through the motions of teaching them so that they understand and know, right? And that they can base their own decision and maybe get a little bit of more insight on why not to do it or why they should do it, right? But not only that is, oh, I can't remember where I was going with that. If we all, and not putting, I wanted to add to that, explaining our why and explaining how we feel, explaining why we need certain things, explaining our why and the because behind things in a way that doesn't put it on the other person, right? When you put something, when you're explaining how you feel, a lot of the times people will take it upon themselves and they'll internalize and go, this is all my fault and you're blaming me. And it's no, I feel the way I feel because of me. Yes, that triggered it, but it's not an intention. You didn't intentionally mean to hurt my feelings. You didn't intentionally mean to make me feel like, I wasn't visible, whatever that looks like, right? There's the intention behind it. And that's the because, that's the why, right? Our emotions are completely and utterly based on our own mindset, our own triggers. Our triggers are the beliefs that say, oh, this word, this phrase, this action, or this event is going to trigger this emotion. That's where the emotion comes from. That's literally it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are on crunch time here. So I'm going to quickly end this here. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we go?
No, that's good. I think we've covered everything.
That we have. If anybody else would like to reach out to either myself or Pascale, and I hope I said your name properly. I usually ask at the beginning, so I apologize. You can do so by checking us out. Link in the description. Our sponsor today is none other than a Phoenix Identity. It just happens to be my company. And if you want to learn how to find your own self-love and that unconditional love within yourself, your confidence, your empowerment, reach out and have a clarity session with me. Let's discuss it and see what we can get started on, even if it's just the one session. So go and check that out, link in the description. If you'd like to be a guest of the show, or if you would like to have a topic featured on the show, please reach out to us at justalivetv.com. Join our newsletter at justalivetv.com and find us at Just Alive TV on majority of the social media networks. So thank you very much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Fantastic.
I had a blast. I love this topic.
So great.
All right. Well, Just a Family, thank you so much. This is the episode for today. I'm your host, Melissa Krechler, and I will see all of you on the next episode.